I was on a plane and I was talking to the guy next to me. He said, "Oh, I met my wife on Match.com." I was like, "What year?" And he told me. I said, "Yeah, you're welcome." With the exception of the medical field, we've probably had one of the biggest impact on human life.
You know, one of the best things you can do for your own happiness is...
That is great advice.
Literally, I mean, that is the single biggest thing that can influence your mental health.
Welcome to Learning from Leaders, a podcast from Southwestern Medical Foundation where we dive into a world of wisdom, mentorship, and innovation, exploring the insights and life lessons of seasoned community and business leaders. I'm Michael McMahon, President and CEO of Southwestern Medical Foundation. I invite you to subscribe now and join us on this empowering journey of growth and leadership. Now, let's learn from the best and drive meaningful change together.
Welcome back to Learning from Leaders. Today, we're talking with two incredible women who are both seasoned executives and trailblazers in business. Both Mandy Ginsberg and Shar Dubey served as CEO of Match Group, which is headquartered right here in Dallas, and of course includes global brands like Match.com, Tinder, OkCupid, and Hinge. Mandy served as CEO of Match Group from December 2017 to March 2020. She currently serves on several boards, including our very own Southwestern Medical Foundation, as well as the boards of Uber, Universal Music Group, ThredUp, and most recently Flow, the leading app for women's health. She also grew up right here in Dallas. Shar succeeded Mandy as CEO of Match Group from March 2020 to June 2022, after serving as president of the company during Mandy's CEO tenure. She currently serves on the boards of Match Group, Fortive, Naspers, and Prosus. Shar grew up in India and graduated from the Indian Institute of Technology. With that, Mandy and Shar, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, so to start off, we'd love to hear from each of you about your journeys to Match. Just walk us through kind of the course of your careers thus far. Shar, would you like to start?
You start.
Actually, you should.
Okay, I'll start.
Because she brought me to Match.
Well, you know, Lily, it's so funny because when you introduced us, you talked about this sort of how I ran the business and then Shar subsequently ran the business. It was sort of not like that. I mean, yes, when I left, she took over, but we really ran the business for many, many years together. Before even those stints, we had been in the business since I think late 2005, early 2006. So we've spent a lot of time in the dating space, which we'll get to and we'll talk about. It was a blast and hard and fun. But I would say that, you know, I was in Dallas, Texas, and ended up being back in Dallas because honestly, my mom was sick and I thought my career as a technology person is over because I thought Dallas, Texas, there's never going to be any interesting technology companies here. I was wrong for sure. And that's changing even more and more. But I got a call from a friend of a friend that said, "Hey, Match.com is looking for I'd finished business school and I was working in a software company, and they said they're looking for a general manager that really understands marketing," which was my background. And so on a bit of a whim, I interviewed for the GM of a business called Chemistry.com, which was the startup within Match.com. And it was the first business, the second brand that they created. And long story short, which we'll talk about, but I was a few months in and I realized I'd never run a business. I didn't run a technology team. I'd never run a consumer product company. I was way in over my head, and I knew I needed to find someone to help with product and tech. And so I called Shar, who was a good friend and colleague, and we worked together at a previous company, never in a million years, ever thinking that she would be interested. But I was like, "Hey, do you know anyone who could help me run product and tech at this company?" And she, about a day later, she called me and said, "I'll do it." And I was like, "You will?" I was like, "Okay." So that's how we ended up working together, which was like, you know, well, this sort of twist of fate. And it was the beginning of like a really
It's amazing.
pretty awesome partnership.
What about you, Shar?
And she forgot to tell you that she got sued for bringing me on board at Match. But, you know, the point she makes is neither of us had consumer tech experience. We'd never run businesses before. We jumped into this thing trying to figure it out by ourselves. We did. In less than 2 years, we grew this business to over 20 million in revenue. One of the interesting things we did was launch the first national broadcast TV ad that featured a gay man. That had never been done before.
That's amazing.
And then we were soon called upon to run the bigger Match.com business, and that's how we got started.
So when you started and you say you needed to figure things out, didn't have the prior experience in consumer tech. Like, tell me day one, where do you start? What's going through your mind when you need to dive in and quote unquote figure it out?
Well, I mean, I think, I'd spent a lot of years, I'd gone to business school. I'd spent a lot of years in marketing, on the marketing discipline. And I ran a division of a marketing agency in San Francisco. So and we were both scrappy and liked to solve problems. In those early days, it was crazy because there was a company called eHarmony. It's probably dated for a lot of your listeners, but it was sort of the big competitor against Match.com. And so we were trying to create a flanker brand to compete against eHarmony.
Okay.
And we were really leveraging a lot of the Match user base and a lot of the Match assets. And so part of what Shar and I did a great job at, and a third person, which is the head of tech, who is an awesome sort of partner with us, is that we were amazing at leveraging resources. I think I treated so many people at the Match business to lunch because I would call in so many favors. I would want to send email blasts and leverage resources and ask for help and support. And that was the early days. Shar was running, I think she was running online marketing personally. She might have even done the buying and creating of the ad units, but we were taking out the trash. We were sending emails. We were figuring out wire screens. It was a lot of, I wish I could come back and watch us then, because we probably looked like, crazy people running around with our, like chickens with our head cut off. But we were just, heads down every day trying to figure out how to make this business go.
I think the big lesson there is identify the people who can help you and don't hesitate to ask for help. Don't worry about organizational constraints. I think this is a thing that we probably did the rest of our careers. We were never boxed into they are a different brand or a different company, or if they can help us, we will take the help. If we can help them, we will help them. And so I think there was a lot of that, getting the right people to help us.
Could you both talk about early in your careers, some of the moments that felt really pivotal in kind of shaping your path towards executive leadership?
I don't know. I do have some pivotal moments where I was like, oh, I'm either going to get fired or this is going to work. And one of the things that Shar sort of brought up is in those early years. So we created an ad campaign. Actually, I'll back up. So we worked for a guy named Barry Diller. He's very well known in the sort of the technology space. Actually created Fox, ran Paramount Pictures. He was, I think the killer Dillers were coined because of him and how he managed. So we worked for him. And at the time, so weird, Jane Pauley was doing a big interview with him. Have I ever told you this story? It's a crazy story. And there were so few women at Interactive Corp, IAC, that they're like, oh, we need to do we're getting a camera crew to come in. We need some female executives. Are there any female executives in the company? And they're like, oh yeah, there's one of those down in Texas. So I flew up and we created a fake meeting that can be filmed. And my boss at the time said, let's not create a fake meeting. Let's actually pitch this concept of this TV ad campaign. Shar started to mention one of the campaigns we did was called Rejected by eHarmony. It was very, very funny. And we sort of positioned eHarmony as most discriminatory business in America. And Jane Pauley loved it.
Oh,
she loved
gosh.
it. She said, this is brilliant. And she convinced Barry Diller to let us do this campaign, which was kind of controversial and really went after the competitor. So anyway, and it was funny. I kept sort of selling and he's like, the shoes are in the box, go. And I thought, okay, this is either going to really work or it's going to bomb. And so I think taking these risks and feeling comfortable, especially early in your career, to take those risks, it certainly helped us, I think.
Absolutely. What about you, Shar?
I don't know that there were many pivotal moments, like Mandy said, where we thought either we're going to get fired today or several of these. IAC was our parent company at the time, and so they did call the shots quite a bit. I don't know that I ever sort of felt like I'm a leader necessarily. I look back, okay, I have all these jobs, but I never sort of thought of it that way. To me, it was an interesting problem to solve at a macro level and on a tactical day-to-day level.
Right. Mandy, could you talk about what was going on at Match during your CEO tenure?
My gosh, I can't remember. There was so much going on over the course of the 14 years I was there and the 18 years, Shar, something like that. That you're still there. You're still on the board. what I will tell you, so I'll talk a little bit about like what we saw over that course of time. So when we first started, it's so funny because people now, there's, people, so many people online date. Back then, there was still quite a bit of stigma. So I think it was 2 or 3% of relationships were from dating businesses because there's no such thing as apps at the time. It was still all desktop. And so fast forward to today, it's over half, even higher.
Magic marriages. So 3% of marriages started online in the US when we started. And by the time I stepped down, it was over half.
That's amazing.
And completely global, not
Wow.
just in the US, but in 190 countries.
Oh my gosh.
So what we saw was this crazy, I'd say we saw and we helped push it along, is that we were in one country, we were one brand, Match.com. We were the second brand, Chemistry.com, which was the business that we came in to run. And then, and we had 200 people. The very first team had 20 people. We knew everyone's name. I think I knew their spouse's name. Then it was 200 people. And then, by the time sort of I was running the business, it was a couple thousand people or close to that. And we were operating in businesses across the globe. And it's not that just, Tinder, of course, was like, there were users in every place in the world, but we had offices in Brazil and we had offices in Seoul and Japan. We also did a ton of acquisitions. So we acquired a bunch of businesses in the US and outside of the US. And so to see sort of what happened with not just the industry, but these teams, and then also a lot of these businesses were competing with each other. So Shar and I ultimately we were CEOs of CEOs. So all the CEO of Tinder, the CEO of OkCupid, the CEO of Hinge, all these businesses reported into us. And so it was a pretty interesting experience, not just to sort of scale and grow, but also figure out what's the interdependence, because we know when people date and they're motivated to date, they use more than one app. We are hoping they use mostly our apps. And so trying to figure out the strategy and also to continue to sort of accelerate the growth was it was definitely hard and interesting. And we also, during that time period, took the company public.
Wow. How do you make sure with so many distinct brands, like how do you make sure that they all kind of have their own identity while they're all under one umbrella company?
You want to talk about it, especially from a product standpoint?
Yeah. Our category is kind of interesting and unique in that each of these different brands does have its particular niche. For instance, Tinder is younger, Hinge is more serious, Match is older, etc. But there's also this idea of dual or triple usage. So when somebody is really keen on finding that one person, they'll use 2 to 3 apps. And so it made strategic sense for us to have all of these different businesses. So the focus for us definitely always was, what do we need to do to support these different brands so they can have their separate product, their marketing, the core customer-facing things were very sort of distinct and run by a separate team. But how can they also leverage the synergies of everything that we know otherwise? And so there were, obviously shared services, but also learnings and those kinds of things. Never perfect, but that was sort of the way we thought about running the portfolio.
Okay. And backtracking a little bit, what made you decide to take the company public?
Actually, this was, so back in 2015, IAC, which was our parent company, decided to take the company public, but they retained the majority share of about 85%. So, and part of it was raising capital and, all the good reasons. The interesting thing that just as she was transitioning, IAC had announced that they were going to sell off the rest of their stake, which was really sort of, you're fully out there on your own in some ways. And COVID happened. And then so obviously we put that plan on hold for a bit.
Wait, but more than crazy. So I ended up resigning early in 2020. I remember these dates because COVID was
January.
Right. It was, so I had told the board in January. We had kind of heard about COVID, but it wasn't a big thing at the time. And we started the transition. Shar came in. And so right as I was transitioning out, COVID hit. So, I always had Shar. We can talk about it later in the podcast, but like people always say it's so lonely at the top, it's so hard. But Shar and I were always running the business together. And so at one point, I subsequently moved to Italy for a year. At one point, Shar calls me and she's like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "You don't want to know," because so the company went completely public. I mean, the sort of ISC had gotten out. Shar was running the business from her kitchen. And also, like at least I had a partner. She didn't have a partner in all this, and she did a great job at running the business. But she's like, really, I've been running this business from my kitchen for.
Oh my gosh.
Well, more than that, the first headlines out the gate in March, I remember March 13th, our business tanked like 20% day over day. And within a couple of weeks, dating is dead. Nobody's ever going to, if you're not going to meet anybody, what are you going to do with dating? And so our stock cratered, and we had to get all of our global workforce remote. But more importantly, we had to figure out how to survive. So within 4 weeks, we launched video on all of our platforms. And then we changed a whole bunch of we had to get all our marketing ads that showed people going to restaurants and having these fun outdoor dates. Those didn't feel right anymore.
Right.
So we had to claw those back and completely transform very rapidly. And by mid to end April, we were back starting to see engagement pick back up. And
I think you also learned that young people would still go out and meet.
they did, but there were, different ways people were meeting, and there were lots of interesting things we learned about human beings and social behaviors and all the rest. And then I had to do all of the, investor sort of meets and greets from my kitchen because we were going to go public after that. And then got listed in S&P and all the rest. But it seems really surreal to have survived those couple of years. And yes, she did bail on me. She wasn't good.
Could you talk about some of the decisions made during early COVID that perhaps have now stuck and continue to be successful now in 2025?
A lot of it actually, believe it or not, got reset. There were a few things that changed. One of the most interesting things that changed was it became very apparent that women and men date in a different cadence. So the reason we know this is by end of April, we were seeing record engagement among women on the platforms.
That's interesting.
And they were talking to more people, they were talking longer, and it became clear the reason they were doing it is because there wasn't the pressure to commit to go meet someone offline. And that had profound, I think, learnings for us in terms of future features that we made. But the other interesting thing was for the first time ever, people started breaking the near me part of the algorithm, and they started dating and talking to people in other states and other cities and other parts of the world. And as expected, in about 6 months, we started seeing success stories of these long-distance relationships that had come to fruition as a result. But all those trends sort of, the other great one, which I was very hopeful for, is for the first time, we found people cared less about what the superficial things like what people looked like. And they were more interested in sort of the person, and we were all changing collectively. Unfortunately, that didn't last. We've all gone back to our superficial selves again.
How do you track that, just data-wise, what people are prioritizing?
It's a combination of both quantitative profile information as well as survey data that we do extensively. And we do it quarterly, and it's longitudinal and globally and so on.
Okay, so I would love to talk about when you two were leading the company together. What was your dynamic? How were you thinking about kind of matching each of your strengths in your roles? How do you think about forming company culture, things like that?
I mean, the funny thing is, the answer to all of that is we didn't think. We really didn't. I mean, and some of this is dumb luck. I mean, I think when Shar came on board and said, I'll join, it was really funny because she came and interviewed my boss at the time and another colleague, and they said, the two of you together don't know anything about this business, but if you think she is worth bringing in, go for it. And because I got sued, they're like, oh, she must be really good. So who else can you hire? If she's that good that she gets sued over, then, you must be great at selecting talent.
What was the reason for that?
Well, it was solicitation because so I had a
Okay.
non-solicit, meaning I couldn't recruit other people. Actually,
Got it.
technically did not recruit her, but the complexity around it is my husband, we all worked together. My husband was still at the company.
Okay.
There was a new CEO came on board, and he said in the board meeting, the next person who hires anyone, I'm going to personally bankrupt. And randomly, I was the next one. And then my husband was still at the company, so it became really complicated. And
Oh
he
my gosh.
actually, it was a really good learning. I'm so proud of how I handled it. Again, it was a totally instinct. Is that I said to him, "Why don't we meet? This is crazy. I can't believe you're suing me." And my husband works at the company, and when we met, we had a drink at the bar near the office. He came with a piece of paper that he wanted me to sign that said that he won't sue me if my husband will stay. Who's actually not even my husband, my fiance will stay for a year or 2 years or something like that. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait, you're asking me to sign a piece of paper about my fiance's career? I was like, you realize I can't even ask him.
Right.
And so the next day my husband quit. So
Oh my
anyway,
gosh.
it was a really interesting. I mean, it all worked
Wow.
out great. So, but yeah, so that was so it was all worthwhile. But I will say at the very beginning, going back to the dynamics, what I don't think we really appreciated, we didn't know, is that our skill sets were just so different. I mean, they just if you look at overlap, it was so tiny, and it kind of naturally happened that way. But I think that, and we can talk a little bit about it. But what I underestimated through the years is the dynamics of we were really it was very clear we ran the business together. We were very transparent. We had a nice rhythm. We really supported each other. We supported the people around us, and people really liked being part of the team. They actually liked seeing our dynamics, and they liked seeing our partnership, and it worked. I think it set a really great tone and culture for the business without us meaning to. And then I think a lot of the things that we sort of our personal values, personal lives really affected the culture without us even realizing it. We were both moms. We had daughters. At the time I went through some, medical challenges that I was very transparent about the team, which I'm happy to talk about. But because we were so transparent and because we were all about, we were moms and we were women, it definitely trickled down in the business.
Right.
In retrospect, people would talk about it years later about how there's a woman who had given birth 15 weeks early, and we were very supportive of her and the decisions that she made. And she talks about the fact that the reason she stayed at Match for so many years is the loyalty and the commitment that we had toward her and her family and how we handled it. And that seems so obvious to us. We've heard a lot of people say that they've been in environments where that sort of approach is not very natural or not obvious.
It makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
My gosh.
I do think, of course, our skill set were sort of complementary. Our personalities were fairly different too, but it was a huge advantage in allowing us to do things we were good at, to play to our strengths in some ways. And it also helped the organization to see two women model behaviors that felt, much bigger than if there was one person trying to do what we were doing. So I think it made a difference that the two of us were doing it together.
Yeah. Could you talk more about just kind of the matching of skill sets? What are some of the things that you really identify with Mandy and you, Shar?
Yeah, I mean, just our backgrounds. I mean,
Yeah.
she has a marketing and business comms background. I'm an engineer, so that alone is sort of different. She is the biggest extrovert I've known in my life, and I am inherently an introvert who has now learned to be more comfortable talking. So just those themselves are very distinct, I think.
Well, we both had really strong mothers. My mom passed away. Her mother's still living, but we sometimes laugh about how, do you think that we are here because of how strong our parents and our support of our dads were, but really how strong our moms were, which I'm not sure it's that's by mistake. So
Absolutely. Could y'all talk about some of the challenges that perhaps you kind of came across during your tenure leading the company together?
I don't know challenges. We should talk. I mean, one of the things I think it's important is that because Shar and I were women, And, really early in our careers, as we went through the whole process of promotions, bonus, compensation, it was so interesting. There was a woman who's on Shar's team who's super talented. She was never going to bang her fist on the table and say she wanted a promotion, although she deserved it. I mean, she's really provided a lot of value. And we started realizing quite early that just because someone, and generally men will ask for money or promotions more than women. I mean, things are changing a little bit, but we wanted to make sure that we kept that in check. And so, we sort of naturally did to make sure, like, wait, what, like, because we would look at people's comp and we look at people's roles. But I think over time, we decided that we wanted to put a little bit more meat in that, and we created a audit. So we went through a comprehensive audit. This one, the company was like, I don't know, probably about 1,000 people, but we went through a comprehensive audit to make sure that we were paying, that within the same roles, that we were paying people equitably between women and men. That wasn't a trend that was out there. I mean, not only paying people, but also doing audits. And so I think we were the first one in the tech space, certainly in the B2C space, to do that. And I think that we knew that we had to put our money where our mouth was. So if we did find, which we ultimately didn't, but if we did find real discrepancy, we were committed to fixing it. And so these are the things that for us, like, they were just grounded in our day to day. But looking back, they were very much ahead of their time, these practices.
And I'm sure, I hope, inspired many other companies to do the same.
I think it's fairly standard practice now. Yeah.
Good. Okay, I'm curious, just from a leadership perspective, what were the biggest learnings over the course of you all's tenure? Like, how did your leadership style potentially look different towards the end of your tenure compared to day one?
Well, I don't know, but I do want to say, like, one of the big things I've learned from Shar, and she had this saying, well, she had two sayings that actually stuck with me. One, you work for a person, not a company. So, pick the person you work for wisely. So, because you can work for an amazing company, but have a shitty boss, or alternatively work for an incredible human, but have not such a great company. So I think that's one piece. And then the other thing, which was amazing to see her in action, is that she's always said, I mean, everyone loves working for Shar, but she said she never liked to manage people. She always liked to manage a problem and to solve a problem together. And so she had this incredible ability to really, like, get a team focused on a problem and then really focus on how do I make sure that everyone's leveraging their strengths. And so, which, I mean, it's amazing, because then when you start winning together by leveraging your strength, people feel really good. And they feel like they're being managed well. But, in reality, Shar's like, I'm not managing people. I'm trying to, like, manage a process and have us figure this out together. I know you asked me, but I'll tell you, like,
Asking both of you all.
I think there is something to this idea that you're not managing people, but you're managing the problem, the process. It makes people feel less micromanaged, but you get better outcomes as a result. There's a couple of other things I would say. One I learned about myself, one I learned from her. Mandy is really good at putting a team together that has complementary or supplementary skills. And this is something we learn. And she's never been afraid of bringing people that, presumably smarter than her, to work for her. And she's always empowered them and given them, the ability to do their best work. And that always gets much better results than if you have an ego about who you are hiring onto the team. So that's, and over time, I think we got the confidence for that never to bother us. But in the early days, we had every reason to be insecure. And this was something I learned from her.
Can I just tell you that I actually learned that weirdly on a soccer field, playing soccer, competitive soccer, which we've spent lots of time talking about soccer. Lily, I was never, like, the fastest. I was never the biggest person on the team. But I knew that, 11 people had to come together in a soccer game for you to succeed. And so I sort of inherently knew that you needed this person who was going to be, 6 feet tall that could score every goal. You also needed someone in the back to make sure that they defend. And so a lot of those practices on how to be a good leader on the field really, I think, transfers in the work environment.
Well, it comes as no surprise that most Fortune 500 women, especially CEOs, played on competitive sports growing up, right?
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Except
Shar
me.
did not. Shar did not. She definitely did not.
But there's so much to be learned.
I went on a hike with Shar once, and she showed up in flip flops. I was like, these are not hiking
Where was
shoes.
this hike?
We were on a vineyard, so maybe that was like the best place.
I didn't know it was a hike. I thought it was a stroll.
A vineyard maybe sets a different tone than a
Yes,
mountain.
I know.
That's funny though. Okay.
I did
Go
want to
for it,
say
go for it.
something which I've found to be useful to people. One of the things I learned early on that you can spend a lot of energy trying to solve for your weaknesses, the things that you're not great at. But if you spend time sharpening what you are good at, that's what gives you the edge to stand out. And that is something I think people should think about and try to develop. One of the, she'll attest to this, one of the things I realized somewhere in the middle of my career at Match is I had a good memory. And I decided, okay, this gives me all kinds of advantages because I go into a meeting and I have all this data memorized or things we had done and makes for efficient meetings and better decisions and all the rest. So I stopped taking notes. So it's been about 15 plus years that I've never written anything down. I forced
Wow.
myself to. I'm giving this as an example of how to sort of strengthen what is already a strength, so that gives you that extra edge as you're working your way through
Right.
organizations.
So looking over the last few years, of course, we've seen a moderate rise in women who have become CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, but we obviously have a long way to go to achieve the representation that I think we would all want to see. What do the two of you think that companies can do, and what do you think needs to happen at the industry level to make sure that women are supported in the way that they need to be at all levels of leadership?
I think just give it time. It's getting there. And the reason I say that is you're seeing it in early, when Mandy and I, early in our career at Match, we were one of the very few women leaders. By the time I left, almost 40% of VP and above were women. And so it's slowly growing, whether it's education or entry level at every level. So you'll see the volume, the pool of eligible people who can make it to the top grow, and that alone should increase those numbers. I think the biggest disadvantage today for us, I mean, there were a lot of things that had to break so that we see the kind of progress that we're making. But the biggest one that still holds us back is the period in time where your career sort of takes off in the middle management levels is also the time when you are thinking about having a home and having kids. Right. And if you can't strike that balance, you get held back. Right. So, we're fortunate. We had supportive partners who were able to pick up some of the slack, but that's what I think holds a lot of women back.
Yeah, but you know what? It's so funny. Well, both times when I was on maternity leave, I got promoted. So when I was on maternity leave in 2008, I was at Match with my youngest daughter. My boss at the time said, "I'd like to come say hello and see your child." I'm like, "You do?" I'm like, "That's weird." So he comes over. He's like, "Yeah, baby's cute. I need you to take on this bigger role, Match.com." And I ended up jumping in pretty early into my maternity leave. I was ready to go, but
yeah, I had 5 days maternity leave.
5 days?
Yeah, that's my point.
But she did that because she was like so stir crazy, and so she was ready to get out of there. But the point, I mean, a lot of people stay for a lot longer for maternity leave. But the point is that it did take a guy to like make a bet on me, not thinking that, hey, this woman's never going to come back to work, but instead figuring out a way to like give opportunities for us to lean in.
Yeah. What do you think companies should be doing to kind of to make that balance more easily achievable?
I think that's, the example she just said. If you've recognized potential in someone, don't let these small little interruptions get in the way, because you know that they will come back to their full self. Yeah. Just have a little patience during that particular period of our lives.
And look, I mean, I think that if you look at even since We are now we're, given sort of you're part of the Carey Council. If you look at the medical field, 50 years ago, less than 10% of doctors were women. And now I think more than 50% of women are medical students in the US. And so that's just, we've sort of seen it in the last 50 years. We'll see the same thing. And women make great leaders. And so it's just a matter of, I think, to Shar's point, it's a matter of time. The other thing that, I think that normalizing kind of, being a mom and dealing with sort of the life the way, because don't forget, like in my parents' generation or, 15 years ahead of, above me, women, they didn't really even talk. They'd show up pregnant. They'd like tell you, 2 months before they were like about to leave maternity leave, and it was a big taboo. Things are changing now, and that normalization, I think, is important. One of the things and one of the reasons that I joined UT Southwestern's board is that so I tested positive for BRCA, which means that I have a high propensity of breast and ovarian cancer. And my mother and my aunt passed away of ovarian cancer. And so ultimately, I went through a preventive mastectomy and hysterectomy. But we were such heavy duty operating company, and we were kind of in the thick of it every day, that I made the decision to do the preventive mastectomy. But I felt like I needed to tell my company, because I didn't want to just disappear for a few weeks and be like, where's Mandy? Is she dying? Like what, So because of that, it normalized some of the conversations we had. I'm like, I'm going to take care of my health. It's really important because people need to be here long-term, like both physically and mentally sort of capable of the work. And so, I think it became kind of no big deal to talk about these things in a time where I think 20 years before, people did not have these conversations.
Right. Well, I'm sure, of course, helps with normalizing and also helps with just creating a culture of trust. Could you all talk about what advice you might have for younger women who are aspiring to executive leadership roles?
The biggest thing I would tell them is learn as much as you can. Don't be constrained by artificial things like organizations, etc. Just learn as much as you can, as broadly as you can, add value, and work on your strengths that allows you to stand out. And ultimately, all of these things become useful when you are in leadership roles, because you do need breadth of knowledge of dealing with multiple different things. The other big thing, if you're aspiring to be a good leader, be a student of human beings and how to deal with human beings, because that's ultimately one of the biggest things you do as a leader is manage people.
That's really
Even
good
though
advice.
I don't like to manage people.
Manage projects.
I would say, look, if people have ambition and want to be leaders, don't get complacent. I think that making sure you're pushing yourself even when it's comfortable, I think is important. To Shar's point, like be a student of human beings, but also pick your leaders. We talked about, working for a person. And then also, people don't mind mentoring or giving you advice. Actually, people love it. They makes them feel great about themselves and important. And so ask for advice. Really, ask for advice. The third thing I'd say, which is really what I would hope that the most important thing people take away, if you're a woman in a business and you've got ambition and you feel like you can really contribute, make sure it is known. Like tell your leader, tell your boss or your manager that you have aspirations to become a manager someday, or that you would like to do X someday, and how can you get there? Or you haven't had a raise in a year. It's like, how do I get to, if I want to get a raise, like what do I need to do to be able to get there? And so I just think that's really important. Even if you don't get what you want, asking and figuring out a productive way to ask is really important. And this is something that it's changing, but I think in general, women don't do a good enough job asking. And then the last thing I'd say is, it's so funny because I'm on a lot of boards, Char's on a lot of boards. The very first the first public board, maybe second public board, was Uber. I was talking to the recruiter, and when she was talking to me about the Uber role, and I knew a lot about the Uber business because, well, one, I'm a consumer of it, but it's consumer B2C. It's a lot. There's a subscription element to it. It's a lot like, a lot of dynamics and very similar culture to sort of Match Group. And so there's a lot I understood about the business. But what she said to me is that as she was sort of interviewing a bunch of new members, she said often the women's first question is, can I add value? You know, how can I add value? Do you think that, what are the gaps on the board? Versus a lot of men would not approach it that way. It would be like, what's the comp structure? You know, what's the other, they'd ask the dynamics, but it was more about like, what's in it for me versus like, how can I actually help and add value?
That's
so you sort of see
fascinating.
it even at like these board levels where you've got, you know, CEOs of Fortune 50 companies, the same thing. And so I would just say like women should raise their hand.
Yeah.
To a point about who you work for, I think champions, identify who can be your champion. We all need champions, regardless of whether we are women or men, to actually help us move forward. Find the champions in your life. I think it's important.
That is great advice. And I'm so glad, Mandy, that you mentioned role models, because we have one question that we ask to all of our guests here on Learning from Leaders, which is, who has been an incredible mentor in your life that has really kind of helped shape your philosophy on leadership and helped you throughout your career?
Okay, you might get mad at me for saying this, but Shar, I mean, really, it's amazing because I've had like a partner in my career that I've learned from. I've watched sort of the grace under pressure, problem solve. And I mean, people usually don't get to say that. It's like you have some like lofty leader that you admire or someone who ran a company. But it was different for me because I got to see day in and day out an individual who, I mean, was really an incredible human being and operator. So I feel lucky because I got to be with someone who I learned from every day.
Sounds like best case scenario. How about you, Shar?
So again, I don't have anybody that was, you know, somebody on a pedestal. It's actually not great to put anybody on a pedestal. I think there's a lot I learned from people who how to do things right and how to not do things right as well. But the person who's really shaped me as a human and a leader and my career is Mandy, bar none.
But we've never been asked that.
Really?
Bar none.
I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah.
Well, excellent answers. Okay, so I'd love to talk about some of you all's involvements outside of your careers at Match. You've both had incredible board involvements. You're both involved in various community efforts. Mandy, you recently joined the board of Flow, a women's health app. Could you talk about the business, how it's been kind of getting involved on that board?
It's been such a cool journey. So I actually met the company 5 years ago. Really interesting founder story, highly technical, very, very good operators. I met them, and honestly, this guy called me. He had a really strong accent. I was living in Italy at the time. He was in London, and he said, you know, I'd like to come meet you. I've never been to Florence. Can I come spend the day with you? I was like, who are you? I mean, really? And that started the beginning of a very long relationship. And I just joined the board. I actually been consulting and spending time with them, but just joined the board recently. But it's a really fascinating journey because there's 73 million monthly active users, which is incredible. I think it's like, I don't know, 20% of young women in America use this app for period tracking. But more than that, what's so exciting about it, aside from the growth, and they just got they're now the first unicorn $1 billion company in FemTech. I think
That's
the very
incredible.
first. So they just got a huge infusion of investment from a large private equity firm. But aside from that, it's amazing because there's, you know, hundreds of millions of data points, and they have the ability, using AI and technology and some of the product features that they've reached, to identify when people might have concerns, like, you know, you need to go get a pap smear because if we see enough signals that there could be a risk of cervical cancer, we want to make sure people see a doctor. And so the fact that this is an app that can help you get pregnant, identify symptoms, symptom tracking, that can really help you learn as a 13-year-old getting your first period. And so I just think that it's an amazing tool that young women have. And also they've spent a lot of time and focus on privacy, making sure that people's information is always, you know, is really is just theirs.
Right. And Shar, you've been involved on the health side as well as part of Fortive's business. Could you talk about that position on the board and what that's been like?
Yeah, so the Fortive, which is an industrial tech company, about a third of their business is in healthcare, but it's more industrial technology, so sterilization equipment, calibration, sensing, so all around safety and productivity of hospital systems, if you will. So it's less directly on the consumer side, although these are some very old brands like Fluke and ASP, et cetera, that makes our hospital stays that much more helpful. One on the health side, one of the more interesting ones that I'm working on is a nonprofit. They have been doing a bunch of research over the last several years globally on what sort of practices build up the capacities that are needed that help you be more vibrant and better mental health as you grow up. And this is a real issue that we're all dealing with. It is, and mental health is a epidemic, particularly among young people. And just as we have diet and exercises for our body to try to keep it healthy, there are real sort of things we can do, the diet and exercise for our brains and what's good and what's not good. And so this part, and we're working on a technology platform, so hopefully it'll become more widely available. But at the moment, it's more research. But it's an interesting area that I've been more recently involved in.
That's wonderful. And Mandy, you're on the board right here at Southwestern Medical Foundation. Could you talk about how you got involved and what is your process for kind of figuring out what you want to be involved in? What are the issues that you really want to focus on?
Well, I mean, it's so fun because at this stage in our careers, we sort of get to say no to things we're not passionate about or not interested in. I grew up in Dallas my whole life, and it's amazing to see what we have in our backyard. I mean, it's one of the most incredible, world-class facilities and research institutions really in the world. And my daughter's a third-year medical student. So I don't come from a family of doctors, but I feel like she was living with us years 2 and half of years third year of medical school. And I feel like I was living a little bit of a Grey's Anatomy episode every day. I was like, what happened? What's going on with this doctor? What's going on with this patient? And also, I'm just so proud. I mean, my mom was treated both at Baylor and UT Southwestern, and to be a part of sort of the future in science and what's going to happen over the next decade, especially with AI, I'm so excited about. And then frankly, just some of the growth in Dallas. I mean, 250,000 people moved to Dallas last year. Building the Children's Hospital is going to be so exciting, and it's going to set up, not just the next generation, but the next 3 generations in North Texas. So I feel when I got the call, I jumped at the opportunity to be involved. I'm learning so much. It's a really complicated, big, exciting organization, and I just joined, so the journey just started.
It's exciting. So I want to ask one other question about kind of corporate responsibility. Of course, in the wake of the devastating fires in LA, we've seen companies like Tinder really step up and offer support. Shar, could you talk about just the way that you have thought about corporate involvement in helping to solve challenges like what we're seeing in LA?
Yeah, so Tinder is actually based in LA, and we have north of 500 employees. Many of them are directly impacted with their homes burnt down. So it was a no-brainer for the company to be there when their employees are in trouble. In general, though, I do think we have a responsibility to the communities that we operate in, because our stakeholders are our customers, our employees, and nobody can do their best. Our employees can't be their most effective if their environment and their community is broken, right? So, we do have a responsibility on the corporation side to be doing something.
Absolutely. Well, what advice do you all have for younger professionals who are seeking to get engaged in their communities and make an impact in their communities? Mandy?
It's funny because I remember there's days when I was young in my career where at the end of the day, I just, I'd work so hard during the day and I just wanted to veg. I don't think Netflix existed. Maybe it did, but I just wanted to veg out. What I would say is, put yourself out there, because and the more people you meet and talk to about things that are important to you, opportunities will open up. It doesn't matter if you're passionate about, I don't know, animal rights or the medical field or homelessness or literacy. Dallas is such a unique place because we are a community that really gives back. I think there's very few places in the world that are like Dallas, where leaders in the community really dig in. And I would say that there's more problems and more need than there are people. And so if you're interested, make yourself available, because we need all these skill sets that your generation is developing.
How about you, Shar?
Yeah, one of the best things you can do for your own happiness is to be useful every day, be productive and useful. And literally, I mean, that is the single biggest thing that can influence your mental health. That, and not to mention when you give back and get involved in community, you meet incredible human beings. The part, as Mandy said, when we were in these operating roles, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity we had to get involved on the nonprofit side. That's something we're able to do in this chapter of our lives. And I will say the people that I meet, are incredible human beings. They make your life richer. And as we get older, I think we appreciate it more. So my big advice to young people, make yourself useful every day and find incredible human beings to build long-term relationships with. And you do that by engaging in community.
It is great advice. Well, I have one more question before we kind of get to some quick rapid fire questions. What are each of you most proud of in your careers?
I'm really proud of the long partnership and friendship I've had with Mandy while doing some incredible things on the business side, as well as the sort of impact we've had over the years. I mean, I used to, some investor once asked me, well, what do you want your legacy to be? And I said in jest, 1 billion babies, but maybe not 1 billion, but I do think we're responsible for many millions of babies. And that's an incredible feeling to be sitting here thinking about that kind of impact and, how we've seen technology play such a big role in changing in this profound social change, but having been able to do it with a best friend and a partner.
Sounds like a dream.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I was on a plane yesterday, and I was talking to the guy next to me. I told him, he asked me, what did you do? And I said, I worked at Match. He said, oh, I met my wife, who was sitting on the other side of him on Match.com. I was like, what year? And he told me, I said, yeah, you're welcome.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I do, it's funny. I mean, Shar and I talked about it. I've talked about it that we really, it's probably, with the exception of the medical field, we've probably had one of the biggest impact on human life. And we actually hear so many times people say, I never would have met my significant other if it weren't for Match.com or Tinder or OkCupid. And so running these businesses, juggling kind of the personal life, and actually we have 3 daughters between the two of us. I have 2 and Shar has 1. It is extremely rewarding to be able to see now, because it's like so many years later that because they didn't always appreciate us, but to sort of see them now appreciate what we were able to do in our careers, and they always felt like we put them first. I think I'm really proud of that.
That's fantastic. Okay, so to wrap up, we have some brief rapid fire questions. So just first thing that comes to mind, maybe for each of them, Shar, you can go first, and then Mandy. Okay. So first is, what TV show are you watching right now?
TV show. What did I just finished The Drops of God.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's done. That just got done. Yeah.
Okay, adding that to my list.
Yeah. Nobody Wants This, The Hot Rabbi. It's
so good.
And it's also, there's just so much intensity in the world we're living in right now, between wars and elections, and it's fun. I
need something light.
I needed something light.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm watching Young Sheldon also.
Oh, that's a good show too. Oh my gosh. Okay, what's your favorite thing about Dallas? And perhaps something that not everyone would know.
Dallas is actually an incredible place to live in. And I don't think people quite, especially people who've never been to Texas, have this sort of preconceived notion about Dallas. Dallas has a really good balance on, you want to go to museums. We have some of the best museums. We have one of the best restaurant scenes, some unique chains of famous restaurants around the world. They opened their first franchise in Dallas. I don't think many people know that. So it's a great food scene. It's an incredible, easy place to live and raise kids.
I would just say it is such a welcoming community. I mean, I grew up here, so I don't feel that, but it's been pretty remarkable to see friends from business school, friends from other states come in, and they feel like there is not as much pretense, and and the community is the business community is welcoming, the religious community is welcoming. People they really embrace new people. And I will say I'm like never been so proud of Dallas as I have in the last few years.
It's a great
I
place to
will
be.
attest to that. I know this is supposed to be rapid fire, but when I came to this country, I didn't know anyone. I had one cousin somewhere in California. 30 years later, Dallas, I have a whole sort of family that I've built and a village that I have, and this feels home. So she's right. Dallas did welcome me.
What first brought you to the U.S.?
Came for grad school.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your favorite hobby or activity?
It's changed over time. I used to paint before, but I haven't in a long time.
What kind of painting?
Oil on canvas, mostly. A little bit of sculpture. But these days, what am I doing? I am listening to a lot of history podcasts is what I'm doing.
Is there one that you recommend?
Yes, there are a lot. There's one called Rest is History, which is a lot of different topics. There's one called Empire, which goes through all the different empire, the British Empire, the Persian Empire, the Ottoman Empire. It's a really wonderful series. There's a new one called Conflicted that I started listening to as well.
Is there an era of history that you're most interested in?
I can't tell at the moment. I'm still going back and forth. The 1500s on is probably more interesting to me because there are patterns that still feel relevant and resonant. A lot of today's things you can feel reflected. Ancient history is a little less interesting to me at the moment, I think.
Okay, I'm sorry I got us off track. Mandy, your favorite hobby or activity?
You can see the difference between me and Shar right now because Shar is very intellectual and artistic. I would say, I was a college athlete and I love sports. I've gone back to my athletic roots. It's been so fun. So I'm all in on anything sports. So I learned to play tennis a few years ago. I'm doing all sorts of racket sports, including paddle, padel, pickleball. Anyway, anything like, being out on a court, it just reminds me of being a kid and playing on a team. So that's great. And then I'm spending a lot of time hiking and skiing.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. So
where do you hike and ski?
Colorado, like every other Texan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how similar we are.
What book are you all reading right now? Or a favorite book that you've ever read?
I'm reading Tomorrow, which is kind of fun because it's.
I haven't read that one yet.
You haven't? Oh, it's great.
Mm-mm. I heard wonderful things.
Yes, and it's about people building a gaming company in Santa Monica or in Venice. I can't remember. In Venice, I think. So, which is, as Shar talked about, Tinder. It's based in Hollywood, in West Hollywood. So it's fun to sort of see what it's like for this young group of people to be building a company.
Yeah. Shar, what about you?
I'm going to come out and say this. I don't read nonfiction.
Okay.
Ever. So all of the books that I read are mostly fiction, and I haven't picked up a book in about a year and a half. How long? I'm trying every day.
But you have your podcast.
Can't, which is what I'm doing, yes.
Okay, I have one more question for y'all, which is who is a musician or artist that you're listening to right now?
I'm listening to so much Taylor Swift right now still.
I love
I
it.
like Chapel Rowan. I just joined a music
Fantastic.
company's board, Universal Music
Yes.
Group. And so my kids are like, you don't even like music, Mom. You don't even get at music. So I've been spending a lot of time watching our emerging artists, and it's been super fun to learn about the music industry. I'm having a blast.
Oh, there's so much happening right now in pop music.
Yes.
It's exciting. How about you, Shar?
I am not very picky about music. I'm actually mostly listening whatever my husband listens to and at home. So.
What genre is that?
And he is very eclectic.
Okay.
So whatever my daughter recommends, I listen to that. So it's eclectic. It's not.
That's great. It's the best way to have it. Well, Mandy and Shar, thank you both so much for being here today. It was such an honor to learn from you and hear from you both today.
Thank you,
It
Lily.
was a pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to Learning from Leaders. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Be sure to follow the podcast for more lessons in leadership, and we'll see you next time on Learning from Leaders.
Thanks for listening to Learning from Leaders. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to subscribe now for monthly episode drops so that you can continue to learn from experienced business and community leaders to help you drive meaningful change in your community.